Hey, Cassandra here with Opera for Black Folks and co-weaning. And on today's video, I want to talk about how to stay in the game as an artist. Yeah, let's get into it. Okay. So it's been a really crazy, busy time for everybody. I don't know if you've been feeling this, but I've been feeling a collective, like collectively, we're all trying to move the needle forward on the things that are important to us in our lives, or we have projects that we want to see completed by certain times, or just in general, there is a desire to move forward, especially after having the pandemic, but just like really wanting to make forward movement in our lives. And with that, with growth and with challenges comes all the stress that goes with trying to do something different, learn new skills. And today I wanted to talk about if you're an artist struggling to stay in the game of being a performing artist, creating art, or just being someone who wants to express themselves on a regular basis with people around the world, or just with your community. Like, how do you stay in the game of that creativity when there's so many things pulling you in so many different directions? And so I wanted to share with you guys some lessons that I learned when I was going through a similar challenging time where I was trying to figure out how to be an artist. Like, how do I do this on a regular basis, a little bit every day? Because my world was in chaos, anxiety and chaos were my bedfellows. Like, I went to bed stressed, I woke up stressed, I was dreaming stress dreams, I was breaking out in hives from stress. And I'm kind of going through a similar experience of that right now. So I felt like this was a really good thing, a topic to talk about. At the time, there was a lot of things that were not going so great in my life that I was trying to figure out how to be an artist. And, if somebody asked me at that time, hey, what do you do? And I would say I was a singer, I would feel all kinds of conflict about that because I genuinely was not singing in my life. I wasn't practicing singing. I wasn't doing anything that related to singing. And yet I had 2 degrees that said I was not only And yet I had 2 degrees that said, not only am I a performer, but I am a master at this. And so it just was a conflict within me because I felt like I was lying. And essentially I was. If somebody asked me if I was a singer, I would say yes, but I most definitely was not. And it was not reflected in my life in any form. There was no routines or practices. And I wanted to kind of talk about that. Like, that you're going through life and you're having these chaotic experiences, you're feeling anxious about what's coming, you're overwhelmed by what's happening, you don't really know what the next step is, and you're just like, I just wanted to stop. At least for me, I felt like I wanted somebody to rescue me from my situation. I wanted someone to come and take me out of this experience. And honestly, there's nobody that's gonna come and save you except for you. If you are creative and you're looking to stay in the game of creating on a regular basis and turning that into your regular career and feeling completely overwhelmed and wanting somebody to just come in and save you from yourself, sorry, it's just not going to happen. There's not going to be this person that's going to come up to you and say, oh my gosh, you are the artist I'm looking for. You're the person, and then poof, give you this amazing career. No. You have to grind for it and you have to work for it and you have to put mastery in that. But there was something that I realized at the time that I was struggling on figuring out how to be an artist every day and acknowledging that I feel chaotic and overwhelmed and that there's nothing in my life reflecting art right now. I realized that there was too much chaos happening in my life when I had a friend tell me a really awesome quote that just was like a death knell, like a wake-up call, when he said to me, Dime con quien andas y tu diré quien eres. And that means, tell me who you walk with and I will tell you who you are. And it was just a instant like, whoa, because I could finally be like, yeah, who am I walking with? What's happening? Where am I putting my time and my energy? I was putting my time and energy into all of these other people and resources and environments that were not actually facilitating the kind of life that I wanted to be living. I was surrounded by people that were reflecting a version of me that I was not satisfied with, because even though I was right there with those people complaining about how hard life was and how hard it was to be an artist and how I didn't know how to overcome the stressors that I was having, those same people were not helping me to overcome. And those environments that I was in was not helping me to overcome these challenges. It was only amplifying the fact that there was a challenge. I realized that nobody's going to save me from my life choices, and that the challenge was to overcome what was in front of me, and that if I was going to change, I needed to do something completely different. Now, there's some things that I mentioned in my newsletter that I go way more in depth with about how I was able to overcome certain things. Once I started to actually practice these new ways of being, even further, it helped me shift into what I would call, and what I adopted from Oprah. I can't steal this. I mean, I'm stealing it, but I can't claim it to be my thing. But she would ask people, what is your spiritual practice? And it was like, what? I don't know what that is. But honestly, what is your spiritual practice? What is that thing that you do? What is that thing or things that you do a little bit every day that take care of you? What do you do every day to take care of yourself? What do you do to reset your body? What do you do to help refill your cup? Because here's the thing about creativity. You cannot create from an empty cup. If you are completely depleted of energy, there's no creativity coming out of you because you have nothing to give. And I was always making the mistake of having this renewed energy every morning and literally giving it to everybody else and wondering why I didn't have any energy or time and inspiration for the things that were my own creative endeavors. But once I started to shift to that mindset of like, let me discover and create routines and habits and practices that are a part of this practice that I do on a regular basis that spiritually fills me up, that way I have the creativity and the energy to continue to make changes in the areas of my life that I'm not happy with. It's hard to be scrutinizing in that way with the things that you have that you're like, oh, I want to change that. It's so much easier to scroll through Instagram. It's so much easier to order Domino's pizza and, veg out. It's so much easier to just continue to let Netflix or HBO or whatever play that next episode of that amazing show that you're binging. But what if you do that, continue that same routine for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? What can you say that you actually have on the other side of those things? And so when you start to look at like, what is the practice that I do with myself a little bit every day that fills my cup up and makes me feel satisfied, even if I only take 10% of the entire day, that's maybe an hour out of all the 24 hours that you have, to focus on something that makes you feel good, whether that's yoga, exercising, reading a book, talk therapy, a spa day at home, healthy cooked meals. It's a part of your practice. It's routine that you do so consistently that it literally begins to change who you are as a person, because you can no longer associate with people who are not doing the things that make you feel good. You would feel a little bit strange to say, okay, I'm not a smoker or I'm not an alcoholic anymore, and then go to a bar and sit with people who are drinking. That would be a trigger, and maybe that's no longer part of your lifestyle anymore. I know that's an extreme example, but the same is true for when you're trying to be a singer or trying to be a creative, and you find that you're around people that are complaining about not being able to do more with their lives, and maybe those aren't the people that you need to be spending the majority of your time with, because they're not going to inspire you to be a better version of yourself. But if you're around other people that are reflecting an idea or an aspect of themselves that you want to attain and want to practice more of, then it helps to put yourself in those environments and surrounded by those people, so that you are thus also inspired to be a different version of yourself. You no longer will think of yourself as a person who sleeps in the morning when you said you want to get up and work out. But if you have a group of people that you work out with, then you start to think of yourself as somebody who exercises regularly. And so if you're a creative and you're like, well, how do I do this art a little bit every day? Start surrounding yourself with people and environments that are going to inspire you to be more creative. Start to put things into your life that are consistently about you refilling your cup, so that you feel that you're taken care of and you have energy to pull from, because your creative cup is overflowing because you've been taking the time to put those things back in. Having a spiritual practice is so important. And if you're feeling like you're doing things and you're like, yeah, I'm meditating every morning for like a minute, but I still don't feel good, well, then maybe you need 5 minutes. Maybe you need 10 minutes. Maybe you need 20 to 30 minutes. Maybe that's what you need. And if you're starting to feel yourself complain and say, oh, but I don't want to do that. I don't have the time. time is the most important resource that we have. And if we give all of that to everybody else and say, oh, I don't have time for me, I don't have time for that, well then, but you're feeling frustrated and you're feeling anxious and you're feeling overwhelmed, then maybe that time, that 30 minutes that you spend in meditation is actually going to serve you more, because you can now go through the rest of your day feeling fulfilled that you actually met your own needs. And so then when somebody else comes to you to ask for your help or for your support with something, you can feel good giving your time to them, because you're like, well, I took an hour out of this whole 24 hours of the day to do something that was good for me. So I have no problem giving to that person, unlike other scenarios, which I would find myself in, is I'm frustrated, overwhelmed, and feeling anxious about the fact that I don't feel the needle moving forward in any area of my life. And all of a sudden this person comes and asks something of me, and I'm just annoyed because I don't want to give anything else to anybody else. I'm not even giving to myself. So I most definitely don't want to give to you. Where if we have routines and practices where we're actually taking care of ourselves, then we have a full cup to give from, and we have a full cup to nourish our creative desires and our creative inspiration. If your life doesn't look the way that you want it to, take some time to write down the things that you don't like. Take some time to acknowledge the things that you don't like. Point them out. Put them on paper. Blow them up. Or spend time talking with a friend or partner or a therapist about it. And then once you see them maybe on paper, or see them out loud, or hear them out loud, or see it in a different context, then maybe it's a little bit easier and it's less scary to be able to take those things and pull them apart and be like, well, I can't change everything, but I can change this one thing. And I'll give you an example. When I was figuring out how to be an artist and starting to implement a spiritual practice where I was taking care of myself a little bit more and more each day, I was looking at my life and saying, okay, I don't like this aspect of myself. I don't like this aspect of myself. I don't like that I do these things, and I don't like that I'm feeling overwhelmed in all of these areas. Specifically as a singer, I was like, I'm not singing and I don't know how to start singing, and I want to be singing more often, but I don't know like how to make that happen. I started to look for areas where it was just an easy introduction for me to sing. So that was going to like opera nights at restaurants, and just finding places that were easy, safe, non-judgmental places to perform, just to get into the act of performing and singing regularly. I had a really strong belief that my voice didn't work, and that I was not a worthy person to share my voice, and that there was something genuinely wrong with me. I had received that feedback consistently through my educational process. And so when it was time for me to actually think of myself as a professional, it was very hard to feel confident in myself, because I had this mindset that was limiting me from actually being the person that I wanted to be, or that I envisioned myself to be. And so for me, I found my way into the Opera Collective. And the Opera Collective is a wonderful organization that helps to make opera accessible in new and unconventional spaces. And so at the time, they were very welcoming to me as a singer to say, oh, if you have the basic craft, like you can actually sing, and you just want to get up and do it, as long as you don't mind being accompanied by these pre-recorded tracks and with an amplifier instead of a pianist, then have at it. Sing as much as you want. And for 6 years, I built my belief in myself little by little, one performance at a time. All the people that saw me perform in the subway systems and would clap for me or encourage me or give me a comforting word that somehow what I was doing touched them was all a part of my healing as a singer. It didn't matter to me that I wasn't singing it in the perfect Mozart style, or that I was singing, that my Italian wasn't the most authentic Italian, or that my German style was not as Germanic as it needed to be. I cared more about nurturing my spiritual self, that I needed to learn how to trust myself in the practice of performing and begin to believe in myself to say that I am a singer. And here is where that is reflected in my life, that I am actually singing, so that if somebody came up to me and said, "What do you do?" I can honestly say, I am a singer. I am an opera singer. I am a performing artist. And here is where I do it. Now, it wasn't the Metropolitan Opera stage, but it was most definitely the most important stage for me to be on at that time, because I just needed to get into the practice of believing in myself in the realm of performing, and have examples of myself doing well. And so that I could build up my belief that I think I can take this now more seriously and begin to refine it and begin to chip away slowly at the things that I wanted to change, because now I was actively performing. And I've had teachers and even my family kind of turn their head sideways, like, why are you doing that? And I even remember a teacher being like, if I heard singers in the subway, I'd be like, oh, they're all washed up. And you know what? Those things can be true. But for me, it was a part of my growth and development to help me to strengthen my resolve to believe in myself enough so that I could take that same belief and transfer that into any other area of life I wanted to be performing in. Because if I could sing in the New York City subways and not let any of the things bother me, then I can most definitely sing on the Metropolitan Opera stage and not let anything bother me, because I'm doing me. I'm being my most authentic self. Sure, it's more refined now and I spend more time, defining the what's required of a classically trained artist. But at the core, I believe that I am a quality singer. I believe in myself because I have had countless examples of watching myself and watching myself trust my ability. Whether it was the most perfect sound in the world or not didn't matter. It mattered that I was in action with building a new version of myself in a new space. And so now that I'm in another challenging period of time, it's the same concept of I've got to work my spiritual practice to put in the time to nurture myself as I go through the challenges and see the things that are kind of in the way and learn how to overcome those challenges so that I can be a better version of me, but also to continue to establish that habitual experience of myself, believing in my ability and seeing myself replicate that action consistently over and over and over again and creating a habit. In fact, I heard this morning that, the difference between a mediocre artist and a great artist is the amount of time that they spend on their creativity and their art and refining that craft and that skill. And I think that's just it. You just kind of have to throw yourself in there a little bit every day and build your belief in yourself and begin to gently refine what it is that you're creating so that you can actually, take that beautiful belief and begin to tote it around in front of larger audiences or in different experiences. And that helps you to grow and helps to strengthen your resolve in the new person that you're becoming, because you're creating those small little action steps consistently over time, that habitual practice of, I am good enough at this thing. I'm good enough to do that better. I'm good enough to reflect on how I can, turn that phrase better or say that word better. And it becomes less of an overwhelm of like, oh, I can't and I'm not good enough. And it becomes more of, I know that I can be a better version of myself. I know that I can do things differently. And I know that I can have the experience that I want to have because I have put in the time to nourish myself. I've put in the time to establish new routines and habits. And I've put in the time to actually see those actions happen or those routines happen in real time, so that I can have examples of myself succeeding. And that way the challenge actually becomes the way, because it makes me think of The Mandalorian. This is the way. And it's all about your own personal growth. But if you are an artist and you're wondering, how am I going to stay in this game? How do I do this? How do I make myself better? Ask yourself, who do you have to be in order to do things differently in order to have the experience that you want to have. I go into this in more thoughtful detail in my newsletter, so feel free to click the link below, but that's my share for today. Thank you so much for watching. This is Opera for Black Folks, inspiring creativity through opera. Please like, comment, and subscribe, or share this video with a friend of yours if you believe that this would really benefit them. And thank you so much for joining me on my journey. I am Cassandra Douglas. I am a thriving artist, and I'll see you next week. Ciao.